Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the United Stand. The transfer window is shut and we will review this transfer window hot off the press from start to finish, the ups and downs and where it leaves us now. Because breaking news, I'm giving it 5 out of 10 and I think that might be generous. I am stunned there are people out there smiling and giving it 7. But maybe you can explain to me and everyone else why it's a 7 out of 10. I think it's been a shambles. I don't blame Wilcox. I don't blame Barada. I certainly do not blame Amorim. So I want to get that in straight away. I blame the Glazers and I blame Ineos. To know things like what Ben Jacobs said this afternoon, that Amorim not only wanted a midfielder, he wanted a right back, and people think this is okay. I am terrified about Amorim's future at this football club. I think they may well have just sacked him. I look at what happened to Solskjaer and we'll look at what happened to him in his last summer transfer window. I look at what happened to Mourinho and what happened to him in his last summer transfer window. And I look at this in total calmness with lots of data and lots of info, the story of this transfer window. And I do not get on board with this faux optimism that everything's going to be all right. Bob Marley's not going to come along and start singing everything's going to be all right. We've been here before, and every time we've been here, it's gone really bad. Every time we've ended a window without what we need, it's gone bad. So it surprises me that people think it's not happening. You know, it's a positive. So we're going to delve into all of that. Look, things like Sesko being our 5th choice striker, things like the Belabor nonsense and the midfield nonsense. Things like all our sales being factually shit. We'll go through each one of those because, you know what? People are saying we've done really well getting rid of the bomb squad. Rashford left to Barcelona for nothing. Wages. Ooh, great business. Wages being covered. Nothing, not even a loan fee. Sancho, next to nothing. Anthony, we made a loss on him. Garnacho, ooh, a 10% sell-on and £40 million. Brilliant. And guess what? With 48 hours left in the window, we'd sold nobody. But people are running around like they've just played the game of Monopoly. I genuinely think some people have got Joel Glazer and Sir Jim Radcliffe on their bedroom wall and a box of tissues tonight. They're bloody loving what's going on. I find it incredible. We're going to get into all of that. And I want you to get your comments in. In tradition of the summer transfer window, the 8 o'clock shows have been brilliant because they've been driven by you. So we're reviewing the transfer window, we're looking forward and we're delving into it. And I want detail. If you're going to put a super chat in or you're going to put a comment in, I want detail. Because I'm going to give you detail on why I think this has been a shambles window, and I don't blame Barada and I don't blame Wilcox and I certainly don't blame Amorim, but I think it's been a shambles. And some people think it's been good. I heard somebody say, actually, look, I've made my own signing. You know what? Man United may not have bought a midfielder. Man United may have left it, but I've been looking for something that's going to run these streams, that's powerful in the midfield and is going to make these streams run for the next season. So Man United might not go and get a midfielder, but I tell you what, a lot of people are going to be very excited about this, especially if we bring Football Manager back, because, you know, my old laptop has done a great job, but it's a bit like Roy Keane and Michael Carrick at the end. It's time for a replacement. I need something reliable to run these streams. Well, thanks to Razer, here it is, unboxed right in front of you. My new Razer laptop. United might not be able to go out and get what's needed, but we here at the United Stand can. Look at that, that's even clean there. It's ready to go. My new Razer laptop. So big shout out to Razer for that. If you want, let me just talk you through what we've got here as well. This is Intel Core Ultra 9 processor with 24 cores and 5.4 gigahertz max turbo, RTX 5000 series GPUs, 18-inch Ultra HD display with 240 Hz option for full HD and 440 Hz, 1 terabyte to 4 terabyte of internal SSD storage, and this is the big thing, 64 gigabytes of RAM and a built-in 5 megapixel webcam. You can also get 32 gigabytes of RAM. It's the Razer Blade 18 laptop, and it's going to be powering our streams this season. United might not be able to do any good business, but we certainly can. Big shout out to Razor. I'm very excited to give it a try tomorrow. We'll be up and running with that. If you want to get one yourself, check it out in the link in the description. We're making signings at the end of the transfer window, even if Manchester United aren't. That's a big laptop, Mark. It's a big audience. It's a big community. And I also want to do some gaming on it this year, because when I played Football Manager, it was taking off. That's powerful enough to power these streams. So big shout out to Razor. Check it out. Right. Karen says, do you think Ugarte has a future at Man United? We can probably talk about that. But what I do want to talk about is this. This transfer window, in my opinion, has been shambolic. And I want to talk about why. But before I do that, let me just hit some of the headlines from today, because we haven't signed a midfielder. We haven't signed an experienced goalkeeper. We've bought Lemens in from the Belgian league, and that is it. 4 points from 9. Man United's midfield awful. Our goalkeeper costing us points. Our midfield costing us points. United decide not to buy a midfielder and decide to bring an inexperienced goalkeeper in. That's your club. Liverpool and Arsenal, on the other hand, Chelsea and Man City, on the other hand, very, very different. But look, these are your headlines tonight before we start reviewing this transfer window. This was from Ben Jacobs. United didn't want a panic buy and to use the budget recklessly and not have it for a big name player. In relation to a midfielder, Man United didn't want to panic buy and be reckless and not have it ready for a big name player in the future. You know, this to me is a little bit like, you know, your wedding night and you're saying to your bride, not tonight, I'm saving it for the future. What's the bloody point? The season starts now and United are keeping the money in their pocket in an essential area. Aside from a midfielder, Ruben Amorim also wanted a fullback this summer. He put forward Estebanan, but United didn't bid. Ben Jacobs again. Amorim wanted a midfielder. He also wanted a right back. Chris Wheeler. Midfield is likely to be a priority in January or next summer. United inquired about a loan for Conor Gallagher, but Atletico Madrid are only willing to sell. So, that's your Manchester United for you. The normal nonsense. Amorim refused a midfielder and a right back. Journalists already starting with the nonsense of next summer and big signings. I mean, we've been here before. Before we get into the detail, let's talk about where we are now. The window is slammed shut. The most important signing, the midfielder, completely neglected because we want to keep the money in our pocket for a big signing, maybe in January or the summer. I've heard it all before. I've heard it all before. I've heard it all before. Every summer transfer window, we don't get what we need. We're going to do it next summer. And you know why they do it? Because this window's gone. So you kick it down the road and you pretend you're going to do it next summer. They won't be doing it next summer. And even if they do it next summer, can I just ask, even if they go and sign a top midfielder next summer, are we writing this one off then? What about now? You know, I'd love to sit down with Sir Jim Radcliffe when he says, we're going to do it next summer. I'd love to say, Sir Jim, so, you know, all these fans that are buying your lovely kits and buying your season tickets and quaffing your champagne and spent all that money, do we get a refund? Are we, you know, if it's next summer, you're going to be ambitious. Do we get a refund for this season? Can we just turn up for free? Can we have our kits for free? Being as you've messed up, you know, if we're not actually serious this year, maybe we can have a refund if it's all an exhibition. At the end of the day, we're still ambitious. Well, you're not. You're not ambitious. The manager wanted a midfielder. You've not got him one, and now you're putting stuff out that you're going to get him next year. So you're admitting we need a midfielder, but you're not getting it till next year. Well, at the end of the day, I didn't think about it like that. Well, we're all intelligent people here, Sir Jim. Ruben wanted a midfielder. The fans wanted a midfielder. You want a midfielder, but you're going to buy him next summer. So we're writing the season off, are we? Or are we living on a prayer? John Bon Jovi FC. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I don't know how people can justify this. As for Conor Gallagher, has nobody ever heard of loan with an obligation to buy? Worked very well for Chelsea. You do the deal, and if you don't like it, you send them back.
We inquired about Conor Gallagher, but, those bloody Madrid, Atletico Madrid, you've all heard of that. No, we tried. I even gave them a glass of champers, but they would only do a loan deal. At the end of the day, what are you supposed to do?
Loan with an obligation to buy?
Oh, no one ever mentioned that.
Yeah. Everybody's doing it, mate. Loan with an obligation to buy. Everybody's doing it. It's the new thing. Maybe you'll start doing it in 5 years' time. Why not do a loan with an obligation to buy? Loan Conor Gallagher, £40 million obligation to buy. If he does shit, £5-10 million, penalty. So what? I don't know. I'm so lost in this spin, I just don't know. Anyway, that's where we are. Nothing's been done in the last 2 weeks other than a young goalkeeper from Belgium. Despite the manager losing to Grimsby last week and being under huge pressure, nothing. Despite us needing a last-minute penalty against the team that's going to get relegated, nothing. So I've watched Man United play 2 games and their midfield get absolutely obliterated against shit. But we don't need a midfielder. We're absolutely fine. I have to start analysing this midfield, this transfer window. I have to start going through your comments. And it will be a 2-hour show. 8 o'clock show becomes 7 till 9. So we've got plenty of time. However, I do just want to overarch this again. I don't blame Jason Wilcox. I know for a fact he wanted a midfielder. I don't blame Barada because even though he's the CEO, if Beth said, I want to do a live stream outside Old Trafford, transfer day, deadline day, interacting with fans, and I've figured out how we can do it, and I say no, it's not Beth's fault. Beth's an important member of the United Stand. She's got production responsibilities, but I own it. And I say, no, we're not doing that. And everyone finds out. You can't blame Beth. Even though she works for United Stand, you can't blame Beth. You can't blame Barada. He's a CEO, but he can't make the decisions. He can present, we want this, we want that. But if Sir Jim and Joel say no, I don't blame Barada. I don't blame Wilcox. I genuinely think they've tried, and I think they've been hit with, you can't do that, you can't do that. Now, they could resign, but they're not Man United fans. They're being paid a job. Daz says Rome wasn't built in a day. This Rome ain't getting fucking built, mate. It's getting sacked. Anyway, so look, before I get into anything, I just want to say I'm massively concerned about Ruben Amorim's future. In a way, I think he's getting sacked by the club. I think they've messed him up because the facts are, I base it upon this. We'll go through the detail of the window and why I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. But going forward, I just want to pose this and then we'll come back to it later. Beyond this transfer window that's now shut, one positive is, the disappointment is over. It's final. It's a dead window. It's over. We can honestly give it our assessment. But I worry about Ruben Amorim, and I'll tell you why. Ruben Amorim has his haters in the media, and we all know that. And Ruben Amorim has his haters in the fan base, and we all know that. We've seen the Amorim out videos last week. Multiple Amorim out videos across media, fan media, X, whatever, TikTok, the lot. So we know it's out there. Burnley gave him a respite, but it will be back as soon as he loses. We've all walked the path with Ten Hag and Ollie and Jose. And when the manager out movement starts, it only goes quiet when we get a good result. It's instantly back on a bad result. And do you think the bad results are gone? So that Amorim out movement is still there. With that midfield, we are going to lose games. So the Amorim out movement's not going to die based on this summer transfer window. But it could have done if we'd brought the right players in. I can't see how this team does any better than 6th. Newcastle finished 5th with 12 losses. Every loss is going to knock this manager further towards the exit door. I worry about this manager. With what he's got and that midfield, I worry about this manager. Big time. And I blame Sir Jim. So I may find myself in a position with you at some point going, he must be sacked. He has to be sacked. The results are dreadful. But I will remember this moment and I will say it at the time. He may need to be sacked, but who caused it? And I think we may well have seen that because We're all experienced, unless you're a brand new fan and hasn't got a bloody clue. We're all experienced. I look at Solskjaer's last summer window, and he was gone by Christmas. Yeah, Sancho finally came in. Varane came in. Ronaldo came in. But that Ronaldo signing did Ollie need Ronaldo, Varane and Sancho, or did he need a midfielder? Having had Van der Beek, who it wasn't what he wanted. He was gone by Christmas. I look at Mourinho's last summer. He'd just finished second, remember, which he said was the biggest achievement of his career. What did they do for him? Fred and Delo. That was it. Oh, and Lee Grant. A shit summer transfer window. So, and look at, I just think history is going to repeat itself. Now, look, Cunha and Burmo are good signings. But anybody that wants to hang their hat on that, shame on you. We finished 15th, lads and ladies. We finished 15th. If you think Cunha and Mbeumo are enough for a good summer transfer window, I would have said we needed 8 signings. Minimum. 5 minimum. We've had 4. So I think it's been awful, this summer transfer window, in my opinion. And I really do worry about Ruben Amorim's future. And I say it in a calm way. I mean, look, I've reacted to... I remember reacting to a... I'm not crying, I just can't see. I remember reacting to a Manchester United summer transfer window on a street in London one year. And I was ranting and raving. I wasn't raving, I was ranting. I'm not ranting. I'm just telling you calmly what my assessment is. We needed a midfielder. A good midfielder. We needed a good midfielder, and we didn't get it. And I think it's going to hurt us. Now, I think we probably needed more, but that's where we are. Let's go through the window and why I'm giving it a 5 out of 10. But before that, there are a raft of super chats that I just want to start piling through, and then I'm going to detail it. Jay, welcome to the Members Club. Times End, thanks for being a member for 29 months. What was the point of letting Collier go if we weren't going to sign a midfielder? Well, Ryan, the reality is we did want a midfielder. The reality is Amorim and Wilcox expected a midfielder. I don't think we would have let Collier go if we were going to end up like this. But we were expecting a midfielder. The Belabor, don't forget Belabor. Like, that happened. David Ornstein, I mean, you know what? I don't want to get angry, but that actually happened. Like, we actually had David Ornstein saying Man United are in talks with Belabor. And when David Ornstein says you're in talks with somebody, 99.9% of the time it ends up with official. We actually were David Ornstein talks with Belabor, and we ended up with nothing. At that moment, I was so happy. I was like, even if we don't get Belabor, we'll get someone. And we end up with nothing, you know? Victoria says, how can our recruitment team and CEO let Amorim go into the season with one of the worst midfields in Europe? Bruno, Ugarte, Casemiro would not get into any single top 6 club in Europe's midfield. We are well and truly cooked. That's the best comment you've ever made, Victoria. Absolutely. Big thanks to you and the team for covering the whole window. Many of us remember saying 9+ players needed back in May. Ownership let us down, says JD. Look, you know what? The team's done great today. To have 20,000 people watching for 5 hours is incredible. So, you know, it's been a brilliant effort from the Manchester studio. Absolutely brilliant team we've got working on the United Stand and on That's Football. And obviously, as always, a massive shout out to you. All the 8 o'clock shows, the 10 o'clock shows, the reactions. You know, we're in it together. And, you know, we'll still be in it together, but the summer transfer window is shut now. Mark, big thanks to you. Thank you very much to JD. Liverpool got Guehi for 35 million when Maguire was 80 million, says Andrew. And that was, what, 7 years ago? Can't wait until we're struggling in January in midfield, then we have to pay 2 times for a midfielder instead of doing it now, says Ryan. Look, I'm going to give this transfer window a 5. I'm going to explain it, and I'm sure you're going to have your point. But I'm being honest here. I don't blame Wilcox. I don't blame Barada. I don't blame Amorim. I blame Ineos and the Glazers. I think they're clueless. I know the Glazers are clueless at running a football club. I've got 20 years of evidence. I also think Ineos are shit at running a football club. Look at Nice. I don't think they're very good at it. I don't think they're very good at it. You know, somebody said today, I'm going to give the transfer window a 7 out of 10. Considering we finished 15th and the financial problems we've got, we've managed to get some money in, we've managed to stabilise the club, I'm pretty happy with it, 7 out of 10. And I looked at it and I went, that's not a bot, that's a real account. And I thought, how does somebody's brain work like that? We're absolutely mega shit. We finished 15th. We're in debt because of the owners. And we've got fans going, considering we're mega shit and we're in debt, I think the Glazers and Ineos have done a good job. And you're like, oh my God. The reason we finished 15th and we're in mega debt is because of them. And now you're applauding them for doing next to nothing in the window. You know, we've made loads of money this summer, by the way. We've made a load of money when you add it up. Not having a midfield is like having a bike with no wheels to spin. I would liken what Man United have done in this transfer window to basically getting the chassis for a Ferrari, putting 2 wheels on it, putting a nice interior on it, not getting the back 2 wheels and an engine. And then going, well, what are you moaning about? I bought you a Ferrari. There are components, they're very good components of a Ferrari, but there's no engine in it. And we haven't got 2 back wheels either. And that's the analogy of Man United's window. There are good parts to this Ferrari, but it ain't a bloody Ferrari because it won't go. 7 out of 10 comfortably. Great window, says Pool Life. Yeah, I don't agree with you because you're a Liverpool fan, clearly. Not having a midfield is like having a bike with no wheels, says Spin. As if I'm going to take Pool Life, Pool for Life, as a serious United fan. Mate, you needed to change your bloody thing before you started fishing in here. Raja says it's 4 out of 10 tops. Sales, debt interest, dividends, and now property redevelopment have screwed us for the next 3 seasons as no Europe. Same old Glinios, says Raja. Remind me to read Swedish Rumble's tweet. It's long, but it's very good. If we get time later on, we'll go back to it. It will sit everybody down and it'll make you think. Cheer up, Mark. Not as bad as you're making out. 7, says Rob. You failed, Rob. You can't say cheer up, not as bad as you're making out. 7. You're a coward. Tell us why. You can't just say cheer up, not as bad as you're making out. 7. That is the biggest coward statement I've ever heard. Tell us why. I said it at the start. Just tell us why. And if you can't tell us why, you're wrong. You can't just pluck a positive number and say, oh, you've got to tell us. We're not getting past 8 with that midfield, says Fraz. Amorim out, screams heavy autism, says Mr. Yi. I mean, that's a very offensive thing to say. The streets will never forget, says last summer you gave the window 7.5. Is this one really worse? Loving the 8 PM shows. I'll answer that. Did I give it 7.5 last year? I don't think I did give it 7.5. I think I gave it a 6. I definitely didn't give it a 7. That's definitely not me. I'm a right miserable git. There's no way I'd give it 7.5. I think I gave it a 5 or a 6, mate. That does not sound like me. 7.5 sounds very positive. And even I would put my hands up to that. Should have went for Stiller when we couldn't get Belabor, says Ali. How involved are the Glazers? So Jim has final say on football decisions. Shouldn't he deserve most of the blame, says Andrew. Hi, Mark. Do you think Argate has a future? We've done that one from Karen and we will come back to it. We have some fans who are seasonal, Glazers out, and it isn't helping. I've said it before, I'll say it again. We aren't winning anything with the Glazers, says Nabil. Mediocre window, and when you compare with other clubs, feel like we actually gone backwards. Clubs are fighting for 5th, 6th and 7th have done better. 100% Fairway 5, great point. Tomorrow morning in England, Man United will be strongly linked with Belabor, Wharton and maybe João Neves and Vitinha from PSG like always, says Desiree. Well, all I'm going to tell you now is I'm a psychic. I'm getting voices in my head. I'm hearing tomorrow morning's Manchester Evening News, probably from a certain journalist, Man United are going to spend big next summer. I'm getting this noise. Obviously, I'm not a psychic. They do it every year. Indicator posted that Glasner's waiting for the United job. This laptop is getting us top 4 marks as Tumbleweed. As a software engineer, I can confirm that laptop may be full of turbo processors, but parts like the Man United owners and hierarchy. Shambles, says Raja. Mark, I know you mentioned before we need a Belabor now, which we all want, but what's the reality of going for Belabor in January, says Robbie G? Next to none. If Belabor has a really good season between now and January, why would Man United get him? You know, I mean, what's happened this summer transfer window? All our big proper rivals have spent shitloads of money. Do you think they're going to go, Well, leave Belabor alone. All the big clubs will come in, and not just in England. To be fair, Chelsea are stuck with Sanchez, says Rebel. Let's be honest, 6 out of 10 for me. Slow sales, 3 players in, thin up front and midfield, battle for 6th to 10th, says Ray. Thank you, Ray, you're a legend. There's always January, right? Prathurst, says Mr. Polford. 5 out of 10. Give it, be a 7.5 if I got a midfielder. That's how important it was. Extra 2.5. I mean, that's a great point from Scott. If they'd got the midfielder, he'd have gone from 5 to 7.5. Paramvir says, attempting a Belabor deal, then try not to get any other midfielder, get a young goalkeeper and put tenfold pressure to solve our situation. It's ludicrous. Wan says, we'll never catch up under Ineos. We need 300 million transfer window. Ashton says, the biggest need was keeper and the correct answer was Donnarumma. He was the perfect mix of experience and youth. That's the biggest mistake. Conservative FC can serve for what, says JNS. Evening Legends, here's a question. How many seasons have been written off due to reckless and utterly terrible ownership in the past 5 years? Mike, I can give you the answer. I think in the last 5 years, we've written off at least 2.5 of them. Half when we sacked Ollie. Half when we sacked Ten Hag. So that's 1. I would say that we're writing off this season. That's 2. Well, all right, 2. Damon says, 5 out of 10, club's plan equals Europe only, not Champions League this season. Hate it, but it seems clear. No point expecting more to be disappointed. Champers, says Damon. Can I just add that? If United think that getting into Europe next season's a step forward, they do realise that Liverpool and Arsenal will spend another £500 million next year on top of the squad they've already got. So Liverpool and Arsenal will spend another £500 million next year onto the squad they have now. And also, because they're buying well, they'll probably sell some of the players they've got now for pure profit. So it's only going to get worse. We're riddled with debt and haven't got any money. Liverpool and Arsenal are able to spend £500 million every summer on good players. And when they want to sell some of them players, they'll be selling them for profit. It ain't looking good, Brev. How do you think they are? How thick do you think we are? Talking about next summer on deadline day. As you say, if you don't cry, you laugh, says I see dead bodies. They expected Agate to be the answer in the midfield, says Will. Incoming Mainu new deal signing, says Castlewellan. Wow, we did predict that. I want to talk about Mainu at some point as well, because he's actually staying now. Not getting a midfielder, no panic buys. Does that mean we're not going to panic and sack the manager, using budget to pay him off and get another, says Emily Derry. If you build something imbalanced, what happens? It falls over, the Boff man. Poor squad depth, weak midfield, inconsistent tactics, unstable management and dreadful recent form make United a shadow of top Premier League clubs, says Colin. Hamlet Gomez, thank you, says feels very deja vu. 5.5 out of 10 from me, and I'm being generous. Don't know how we will be in the top half table with that hole in the midfield. Dylan A says, how was tapping up and unsettling Belabor helped us get him next year? Surely we just pissed Brighton off. And Central Sue says, scrape it till January and pray we sign a centre midfielder. Rest in peace 25-26 season. Mike JW says, Cunha was bought with last season's budget and Leon too. So how much has actually been spent? Not as much as you think, especially when they're in instalments, Mike. Yeah. Glinios are going to write off 3 seasons. We'll be lucky to get 9th, but the clowns in charge will see that as progress from 15th. Deadwood and our past comes back to haunt us. Well, the protest shouldn't have been cancelled, but the fans voted to do it. Well done. I mean, how stupid is that, by the way? We all take responsibility, but how stupid was that? Literally, United fans went mad about protests. Some moron did an actual video on it. I mean, how much of a moron do you feel now doing a video saying that the 58 shouldn't be doing a protest? I mean, are we going to get an apology? Like, it's incredible. People told the 58 to stop their protests. Too soon. We're doing well in the window. The Glazers and Sir Jim must sit there laughing. Like, that actually did happen. Some people don't realise it because they're maybe not on social media. The 58 were going to do protests before the Arsenal game. The Arsenal game that we lost because the keeper fucked up because we didn't buy a goalkeeper. They had a protest planned before the Arsenal game. But because they announced it when the Belabor story was happening, they got a load of shit, a load of abuse, and told to stop it and get behind Sir Jim. He's doing a good job. That actually happened. If you go on Twitter quick enough before people delete their tweets, it happened. Videos were done. Look at where we are now. It was actually right. They never should have cancelled that opening day protest outside Old Trafford, says Mr. Byrne. Omar says it's barely a 5 out of 10 window. Very good attacking players in, but not the best deals. Outgoing's good, but happened on the last day, so it didn't help us for the window, says Omar. So no, now anyone who disagrees with you is a coward, says Nicholas. No, Nicholas. We've read out multiple. Sorry, everybody. I've now got to deal with a child. I've read out multiple people explaining why they think it's a 6 or a 7 out of 10. And that's what I asked for at the start of the show, Nicholas. But the person I called a coward said, stop being negative, it's a 7. And I said, why is it a 7? I asked you at the start of the show, why is it a 7? You can't just come in and say it's a 7. It's a coward approach. Give us the detail. Or do you not have any? So, Nicholas, I'll expect an apology, but obviously we won't get one. Bruno should be disciplined instead of a free roll, says Andrew. No sporting players, many prospects out their door, hardly any academy promotions, teams very average, one injury away from crisis, says Raja. Jose staying single and waiting in the wings for when the inevitable happens, says Gory. I cannot in all pure conscience give more than a 4 out of 10 to this window, says Mike. I do think they've thrown Amorim into the wolves, not backed him. Ineos couldn't piss in the same pot as Liverpool. We are now at least a decade behind them, says Irfan. If Kone isn't the next Kante, Amorim is done, says Matthew H. All these reporters are chancers and liars. 2 weeks ago, they said Amorim would go for a keeper and get a midfielder. Absolute bull from them all, says Lee. Looking at the window as a whole, it's a 5. I've done that from John United. There are a few more to go through, but I just want to draw a line in the sand and just talk about why I detail this window as a 5 out of 10. And then we'll carry on with yours. And then I want to talk about what's to come. And I want to talk about menu. And I want to do the Swedish Rumble email. So there's a lot to go through. Right. My moment. This is why I am going to give this transfer window a 5. I think you start with a 6. Every player, when we do the player ratings, 6 is average. I always start at the start of the game with a 6. Everybody starts with an average performance. And it can go up or down. With the transfer window, it's the same. You start off with an average 6. United at the start of this transfer window needed to get 5 players in minimum. We got 4 in, one of which is in the final day of the transfer window. So for me, straight away, that's a mark down 5. Also, when I look at the transfer window, there was a hell of a lot of noise about how we were planned and prepared for this transfer window and how it was going to be a big window for Ruben Amorim's first transfer window, and we were confident that we could deliver the window that he wanted. Great. Have we delivered the window that Amorim wanted? Well, we know no. We know they haven't, because Ruben Amorim wanted a midfielder. He said publicly he wanted a midfielder, and we tried to get a midfielder in Baleba, and we didn't get a midfielder. So again, that's another reason to mark it down. We haven't backed the manager. I see people saying, we have backed the manager. We spent £200 million on Sesko and Cunha and Mbeumo. Did Amorim want a midfielder? Yes. Is it a really essential signing? Yes. Is it the difference between a good season and a bad season? Potentially. They didn't get one. They let him down. So they haven't delivered. That's another reason to mark it down. Also, I think when you look at the recruitment, did the recruitment come in to the parameters that you set? I.e., we sat there in May, June, saying it's really important to get transfers in early so that they can utilise the very important pre-season that Amorim needs. Did we get our signings in early? Even though we didn't get everybody anyway, we needed a minimum of 5. Did we get the other 4 in quick enough? No. Look at Liverpool. Everybody comes in quick. Last season, they win the league. Look at Liverpool. Loads of their players come in quick, 9 from 9. Okay, Isak and Guehi today. But at the end of the day, they got a lot of their business done early. Arsenal got a lot of their business done early. Manchester United, Cunha, the only player ready for the start of pre-season. And Mbeumo comes in next, very late. Hardly plays on the tour, misses the bit before the tour, has only really started to look fit this week. Šeško hasn't started a Premier League game yet, doesn't look match fit. Lemens is only coming in today. So even though I like the recruitment, did we get it in early? No, we failed on that as well. Only Cunha was in early, and Mbeumo, then Šeško, then Lemens, gradually later in the window, and we're suffering because of that as well. So although the 4 players brought in are decent, 3 of them were brought in too late. So that's another reason to mark it down from a 6. That doesn't mean I'm down to a 3, by the way. I'm just giving you reasons why you can start knocking it down. The striker, Liam Delap, Plan A, April, goes to Chelsea. Gyökeres, Plan B, June, goes to Arsenal. Ekitike, we try for, goes to Liverpool. Watkins, we inquire about, too expensive, we walk away, we go for Šeško. Šeško, good signing, very late in the window, not fit. We messed up on the striker. I like Šeško, but he's Plan D. And he's right at the end of the window. So when we look at the plan of being prepared for the transfer window and we look at, we're going to have a good window, I like Šeško, but he's Plan D right at the end of the window. So again, could be another reason to mark it down. The midfielder, very, very quickly, absolutely essential signing, really needed it. We've dropped, in my opinion, 3 points at Fulham because we didn't buy a midfielder, because Bruno didn't go with the runner. You could argue Bruno gave the corner up that led to the goal as well against Arsenal. But I certainly think we've dropped points because of not having a midfielder. We go into Belabor, we brief David Ornstein, we're in talks with him, and we walk away, and then we don't get anyone. Incredible. You could mark him down for that as well. I then move on to the sales. And I'm struggling to understand why the sales are a reason to give them a point for their transfer window. And I'll explain why. At the start of the summer transfer window, we were talking about raising £100 million in sales, not wages, sales. Apparently Garnacho was going to go for around 60. Rashford was going to go for around 40. There was also talk that Anthony would be going for about 35. And we were going to get money for Sancho. Now, I ignore Sancho because I never expected to get money for Sancho. Rashford, we were talking about £40 million. He goes to Barcelona. We don't even get a loan fee. He's on loan at Barcelona for nothing other than wages. People think this is a good deal. Where's the 40 million? Where's the loan fee? So I don't think that was a great deal. I thought it was okay, but I don't think it's a great deal. And then we get to the real crux of the problem. Anthony, there was talk of Atletico Madrid, RB Leipzig, Leverkusen, willing to pay 35 million for Anthony. At the end of the window, today, he goes for 21 million, was it pounds or euros? Apparently this is a great deal. So we've seen a 14 million drop off because he sat on his arse to the final day. Garnacho, 60 million apparently, goes for 40 million with no add-ons and a 10% sell-on fee. No add-ons for a 21-year-old that many people were talking about, potentially being one of the best wingers in the game in a few years' time. He goes for £40 million, no add-ons, and if he did go to Real Madrid for 100 million quid, we'd get an extra 10. And also, let's not forget, all these deals, if you go back 3 days ago, we'd sold nobody. So, not particularly good deals, right at the end of the window. If we'd done Anthony and Garnacho a month ago, we'd have a month to go and get a midfielder. Because we did it at the end, we've had hours. So that's why I'm giving it a 5. And honestly, I could give it a 4. I don't think it's been good at all. And I think those last 5 minutes, by all means, tell me where you see the holes in it. I'm just telling you why I started with a 6 and I went down to a 5. Because there's a multitude of reasons there why it's gone down. And I've been taking notes from June the 1st to today. Every couple of days I've been taking notes, so I remember everything. And I remember that Šeško is a late signing and is not match fit and was option D. And I remember that we needed to sell to buy and we hadn't sold anybody until 3 days ago. And I remember that we needed a goalkeeper and we've lost points because of it, and a midfielder, and we've lost points because of it. I remember Mbeumo talks starting on June the 1st and him not signing till the middle of July. Like, the transfer window didn't just happen today. We've had 3 months of this. I cannot give it an average. For me, we have failed. Failed. And I'm really worried about Amorim. But as I say, I don't blame Barada. I don't blame Wilcox, because if you're running a restaurant, I don't blame the restaurant manager and the chef if they're not getting the ingredients. I blame the owners. And I look at what United are doing, and it's cut. And the morale in that club's not great. And it's so bad that a player I really value and I think is ridiculously talented in Mainu, you know, we're celebrating keeping a player where we actually needed another midfielder and him as well. So, yeah. Jonathan Smith says, stop, failed, calm down. Well, tell us, Jonathan. Tell us. Like, I'm relaxed. I'm calm. I'm giving you my information. It's all detailed. If you think you've got a comeback, Jonathan, detail it like I did. I'll read it out. It's not a problem. Rascal says, 4 out of 10. We needed to buy goalkeeper first, 2 centre midfielders second, not 10s. Right wing is weak. Bruno should have been sold. Player sales were weak. Rascal, thank you. So I've listed about 6 or 7 reasons why I've gone from 6 out of 10 to 5 out of 10. You just handed something to me. 2 things I'd completely forgotten. And they're both very valid. So I'll add these in as well. Why did we buy in the order we did? Why did we buy 2 number 10s first? If you need a goalkeeper, a midfielder, 2 number 10s and a striker, that is a spine. Why would you spend 125 million first on the same position? Why would you not go, right, we need these 5 players. Let's do the second number 10 second so that we can get the other positions in. We went straight for 2 number 10s. So, you know, why did we do that? Who decided to do that? I don't know. I don't know. Secondly, and this has to be, well, I presume Amorim has a part in this, and I presume the club has a part in this. We must not forget, and even I did, so apologies, it has been 3 months. We could have sold Bruno Fernandes for £100 million. We could have bought 2 players of immense quality for that. Like, we could have got a really good goalkeeper, whoever you want, and we could have got a really good midfielder, whoever you want. And we said no. So keeping Bruno and ending up with a young goalkeeper and no midfielder, you can directly correlate it to that decision. And we mustn't forget that decision. And we obviously have to assume that Amorim had a part to play in that, we think. Victoria has to be a Saudi prince with these donations, says Tom McBride. Our squad's average age up to 26.9 from 24.7 now. That's mad, Raja. I would have thought it was coming down. We need to give Kone more game time, says Marley. Well, you know what? I was going to mention this about Mainu, and you can throw Kone into it as well. Somebody said, if Kone doesn't end up being the next Kante, Amorim's finished. I would add into that, if Mainu doesn't end up being the player we think he is, Amorim's finished. And how likely is that when Mainu wanted to leave on loan? So, in a way, we're getting Mainu to do what Amorim wants him to do, stay and fight. And I think he has to stay and fight now, because if he wants to go to the World Cup, he ain't going anywhere until January, and that'll be too late. So, let's hope Mainu's going to get his head down, work hard, and be the player he can be. But we need Mainu or a Kone, or both, to absolutely motor. That's ridiculously speculative and hopeful. Midfield's a priority. It's gotten worse. Collier out, says Mario Franco. Mojo's in the house. He says 70 million spent on a midfielder would have given us a chance for Champions League, bringing in 100 million. Champions League helps us attract better players. Yes, investments are risks, but they are the only way to assure future success if done intelligently. I got told, Mojo, many years ago, and I don't know how long you've been watching, but I got told many years ago that the way the Glazers look at things is they take their time, they analyse, and they're business people. So if, when Jose Mourinho was here, he said spend 45 million on Perisic, we'll finish higher up the league and we'll earn more money, Glazers would look at it and go, we're not going any higher than 40. And Mourinho would go, we won't get him done unless you pay the extra 5. And the Glazers would go, spreadsheet mentality, no, it's not worth the risk. It's 5 million more than we want to spend. We're not going to do it. That kills us every time. Kills us every time because it's happened again, hasn't it? We need a midfielder and we'll get in the Champions League. Can we get in the Champions League without a midfielder? Well, we can't say no, but we've got a much better chance with a midfielder. Let's take a chance and save the money. That's what we're doing. We're living, we're run like a business, not a football club, basically. Look, Liverpool could have said, do we need to spend that money on Isak? Could we not go and get a player half the price? You know, we're spending £130 million on Isak. We've already bought Ekatike at high price. We've spent a lot of money on Wirtz. Could we just not get another striker like, I don't know, Wizza for 55 and save 70? And, Michael Edwards or Arne Slot would say, no, because if we get the best striker in the league, we're going to be able to win the Premier League and the Champions League. If you get Wizza, the chances are we probably won't. But the Glazers would go, well, the Glazers would say, let's not get anyone. I'm so sick of the Glazers, says Problox, or Glinios, he says. I love Amorim. He's a great manager. He hasn't even had a full season. Every other manager has had at least 2. Give him time. Lee says Brentford finished 10th, Wolves finished 16th. They both joined United, who finished 15th. How on earth have we finished top 10, please, says Lee. Can Lamens playing a double pivot, says 1 Inch Wonder. We've triggered a release clause, spent 7 weeks on Mbermo, option D striker, sold our rotation striker, 18 million last day goalkeeper, no midfielder, 4 out of 10 is generous, says Bizen. When you put it like that, I was tempted to go with 4, but I was looking around on social media and I saw people giving it a 7, and I thought I've got to try and make it, a realistic show based on, I think a lot of people think we've had a good window. I haven't seen any of those putting comments in, but I don't think it's been very good at all. And Namsik, welcome to the Members Club. Thanks for getting your badge in. 35,000 people watching tonight, by the way. Thank you very much. Please do subscribe, get involved. Don't forget, we're live every morning at 10 o'clock, every night at 8 o'clock, and we're in the studio at 2 o'clock every day. It's going to be an interesting season. Incremental gains bullshit were a joke, says Andrew. Priorities are all wrong as usual. Anyone giving this window more than a 5 is happy with Ineos and Glazers, and it's sad, says Jonathan. We've not really had anybody come forward and explain why it's a good window so far. I know there's people out there on the payroll, certain creators, I won't name them, but, they tell us, they spend all summer telling us we're doing this, that, and the other, and when you analyse it, they don't get anything right. So, I ain't going to listen to that. But I listen to some of you lot. Why is it a 7? Tell us why it's a 7, Gahey deal is off, apparently. That's a blow for Liverpool. Big blow. Remember Project 28, Mark? They've messed that up, says Connor. I think Project 28 was over the minute this summer transfer window changed football forever and teams like Liverpool and Arsenal went and spent loads of money. Remember 3.5 to 4. It will never get past a 5 or 6. This messes up every single window that we don't get stuff done for pre-season. Look at Sheshko and Mbermo and Agate, says Jordan. Javier says, the transfer window was a letdown but not a disaster, 6 out of 10. Would have been lower if we got Martinez, but it's an urgency to get a centre midfielder and a winger. Mark, if you were United manager for a day, what's your first change? Have I got any money, JNS? If I haven't got any money, I'm quitting. I have an idea for our midfielder. How about a diamond formation? Oh, Adam. I don't want to be offensive, but we don't do conversations about formation changes because it's a big waste of everybody's time because he's not going to change his formation. We spent decent, but in the wrong place. Big L, says Amy. Kind of surprised Harry Amas went out on loan. I thought this would be a breakout season for us, says Michael. Look, I do want to just say as well, controversially or not, I think letting Rasmus go was a mistake. And the reason I'm using Rasmus is I want to use the word injury. I don't know whether you've noticed that there's been quite a lot of injuries this first few weeks in the season. Saka's injured at Arsenal. Saliba's injured at Arsenal. Odegaard was carrying an injury at Arsenal. Palmer's injured. Delap's injured. Colwell's injured. There's a lot of injuries going on. And I think that, we will pick up injuries. Mazraoui and Xerxes have already had injuries. Mount and Cunha might be injured. So it won't take long for injuries to decimate a squad that is bare up front, in the midfield, and at fullback. We've got loads of centre-backs and we've got loads of number 10s, but we don't have loads of midfielders, and some of them aren't very good. We don't have many wing-backs, and we don't have many strikers. So if Šeško flops or gets injured, who's playing up front? Seriously, Mbeumo, Xerxes. So I personally think we're quite weak in areas as well. And I don't want to get that technical, like, you know, we needed a midfielder and that's the big conversation. But I also think there are weak areas in that team. I don't think we're actually well stocked for injury in certain places. We all knew that this couldn't be fixed in one window. Let's back the team and see how far Amorim can take us. 6 out of 10, says Marlo. I appreciate that, Marlo, and I respect that because you're a very honest person. You're sometimes very, very critical and sometimes you're very, very positive. I think it's a shit window, though. Very fair play for you giving it a 6. People are not speaking enough about how bad this midfield is going to be. We are going to watch inconsistent football with zero control till at least December. Well, we will realise it next game, says Hader. Look. Very, very quickly, on the midfield, I just explain it like this. That midfield is the same 4 as last year that finished 15th in the same system. So unless they've taken some magic potion, what do you think is going to happen? Like, they were shit last year. This is the same midfield I watched get run through by Wolves and Bournemouth and Palace. It's the same people. It's Casemiro, Bruno, Mainu and Ugarte in a midfield too. So anybody who's saying, I think we can get by with that midfield, I hope you're right, but the evidence is that's a midfield that finished 15th. You sort of needed to change it. When the midfield is the core of any football team, and it's the game where games are won and lost, and we lost a lot with that midfield last year, I'm terrified of it this year. Hi Mark, I only started watching United during the Mourinho years. Can you explain how United was able to succeed under Sir Alex despite this Glazer ownership? Was it his management and or different quality of players? I think it was legacy, Zeki. I think, you know, the Glazers came in 2005. Sir Alex Ferguson had built a dynasty over the previous 17 years. So it's a little bit like a car that runs out of petrol, but it's going down a hill. It will run for a while until it runs out. And I think if Sir Alex had stayed long enough, it would have impacted him. There were so many summers where he would say there's no value in the market. If you go back to 2006 and look at the midfielders we've bought in the last 20 years, it's abysmal. Like it's absolutely abysmal, the signings we've made in midfield from 2006 over 20 years. Somebody did a graphic. They went through all the midfielders we've bought since 2006, and then they went through all the midfielders that Liverpool have bought since 2006. And it's unbelievable how we've neglected that area for 20 years. It's always the midfielder. Always the midfielder. I don't know what it is. Always the midfield. I remember the Vidal summer. It's always the midfield. There's something that we're opposed to when it comes to the midfield. Anyone else think we may only get 10th in the league without a midfielder, says Rock? Is the silver lining Mainu can revitalise us, says Kian? I'm really happy that Mainu is staying, Kian, but I'm not going to start singing and shouting. It's like a new signing. He was here already and we needed a midfielder. It's great that he's staying, but he was here already. I'm not going to start celebrating that Mainu's here because he was already here. Like, it's like going... Beinder's staying. No, that's not fair. Look, I'm really happy Mainu's staying, but we needed another midfielder. Amorim looks resigned and his body language... I mean, look, somebody did just say, does Amorim resign tomorrow? No. No, he doesn't. But if he did, I wouldn't say I'd respect him for resigning. That's not, I certainly wouldn't say that. But it might not be... Well, look, why should he walk away from a massive payout? But I do think he's in big trouble. I think, you know what? Let me explain why I think Amorim's in big trouble. I think that if Ruben Amorim was just starting out in his first season, I think he'd be okay. If he hadn't been here since November and this was his first summer, I think he'd be okay because I think a lot of people would go, they haven't really backed him. there's going to be bad results, but we'll give him the season. But because of last season, there's a lot of people on his back. Thank you, Mike. Ocean says, can't handle 12 months of watching our midfield get penetrated like Bonnie Blue on a Saturday night. Not just a Saturday night. Sir Alex must despise those in charge, ruining United, says Sam96. I don't know. Signings, 8.5 out of 10. Good players, but the window, 5.5 out of 10. No midfielder, uncertain about goalkeeper. Another season of problems. This is step one to sacking Ruben, says Andres. Are you disappointed that you never got Martinez from Villa, says Adrian? I've moved on from it now. I mean, this is always the problem. You know, I'm a bit like Amorim, and I'm sure many of you are. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm honest. So when I have to go live that we've signed Lemens and we've not got Martinez, I read the comments. People are horrible, but, I'm used to that. But what people don't realise is I don't lie. So I have to go live as soon as I find Lemens is going to Man United, and I want Martinez. If I wait a few hours and go for a walk and calm myself down and, pretend like some people do, and I can do a different type of video. But I was massively disappointed. I wanted Martinez. I rate Martinez. He's experienced, he's a leader, and we've gone for a kid with potential. I back that kid, of course I do, but I'm not happy with that deal. I'm not happy at all. Because I wanted somebody more experienced. Apparently the last time we won 3-2 in our third game of the season, we won the league. Ineos to announce the Kobbie Mainoo deal very soon, says Tyrone. Look, let me just say this. I was told a few weeks ago that Kobbie Mainoo deal was ready to be signed and they were waiting until the end of the window. What I've heard over the last week doesn't sound like that's the case, because he's asked to go on loan. Maybe United up the offer. I don't know. But, I think we all know that. Look, let's say Man United have offered Mainoo 100 grand a week and he said no. Tomorrow morning you call him in and you offer him 150 grand a week. How much does it cost? 50 grand a week more every week? That's only 200 grand a month, which is a couple of million a year. A couple of million a year to announce a new contract for Mainoo that's like a new signing, or 70 on a new signing. I wouldn't be surprised if they give him what he wants now and pass it off as a bit of positivity. I would not be surprised at all. Sam says we've had a decent window. Sam, you rage baiter, tell us why. No one's disputing your opinion, but you've got to tell us why, because there's a lot of evidence to the contrary. Compared to other clubs' outgoings and time taken to do deals, I give it 4.5 out of 10. Not good enough. Top 6 maybe, says Wan. Thank you, Wan, for explaining your reasoning behind your score. There's many of you done that. We really appreciate it. Brandon's another one. He says, on paper, this is a 7 out of 10 window and will fool lots of people who just look at the incomings. But when you look at the lack of permanent sales, no midfielder, and the timing of the signings, it's a 5 out of 10. Very well communicated. I would also say, Brandon, the signings are good, but there wasn't enough. Nobody walked into this window and went, if we get Mbeumo, Cunha, Šeško and Lemens, it's a great window. You always have to remember, when you get to the end of the window and you give your score, you also have to remember day one. Unfortunately, I take notes. And I wrote down at the start of the window, minimum of 5 signings. I wanted 6 or 7. The funny thing is, my 5 signings were not 2 number 10s, a striker, a midfielder and a goalkeeper, by the way. They weren't. I didn't go for 2 number 10s. I wanted 2 midfielders. In fact, I think, correctly, I'm wrong on that, because that was my 6th and 7th signing was a fullback, was a wing back. I don't think I wanted 2 number 10s at all. My 5 was goalkeeper, centre back, midfielder, number 10, striker. 6 and 7 was a wing back and another midfielder. I only ever wanted 1 number 10 on mine. But look, ultimately it doesn't really matter. I'm not the manager. I wanted a minimum of 5. We have made good signings, but we've made 4. 10, if Amorim becomes player manager to run the midfield, says 1 Inch Wonder. Chris says, great farewell message from Garnacho. Always knew you were the one spreading hate towards him. I hope he becomes the best Premier League winger to shut all the haters, says Chris. I don't know whether Chris is being a joker here or not. Maybe it's sarcasm. I do have the Garnacho message, if you haven't had it. Dear Manchester, after an unforgettable 5 years, this special chapter in my life now comes to a close. We have created moments that will stay with me forever, and I'm very grateful for this. To the coaches, staff and teammates, thank you for believing in me. Every time I wore the badge, I gave everything I had. I leave proud of what we achieved together and excited for what's to come, wishing the club nothing but success for the future, while I look forward to giving my all in the next chapter of my career. At no point when he says coaches, staff and teammates does he thank the fans. So my honest assessment of whoever wrote that for Garnacho, and he tweeted it, is there a deliberate reason that you've left the fans out? And why are you not clever enough to write your own message? Why do you have to put it into ChatGPT? Yeah. No apologies for walking around in a Villa shirt and being a shithouse either. But look, you know what? Some people are very grateful for the message. At least he's done one. Jim Radcliffe will announce if we sacked more staff, we could have signed a top midfielder, says Shay. Raja says, Manchester Evening News tomorrow, Seb Goldbridge to join United in January. Like going to the F1 season with the car without replacing the front wheels, and the owner says we won't win a race this season, we wait till next season, says Kay. I've done that one. Oh, I don't know whether I've done that one. Let me come back to that. I've done that one from Mr. Byrne as well. Thank you. Just catching up. I need to read this Swedish Rumble tweet as well. Oh, Bisson, you're rubbing salt in a wound here. I forgot. This is how long we've had to do business, by the way. You know, the transfer window effectively opened up on June the 1st. We have had 92 days. 92 days this window's been open. We didn't sell a player till the last 48 hours. 89 days without selling anyone. Who remembers Richard Rios, says Bizen. He went for 30 million euros. I'm sad Amorim will lose his job. Yeah, Richard Rios was another possibility, yes. But look, there's plenty of, you know, Douglas Luiz is at Forest. We could have done that deal. There's loads of midfielders we could have gone for just to help us out. If we'd got Unbeliever, what would you rate the window, says Bradley? 7. 7, yeah. Belabor would have put it up to a 7. Because if we'd got Belabor, Cunha, Mbermo, Lemens and Sheshko by mid-July, I'd say 8. But you have to factor in the timings of the signings as well. If we got all those players by mid-July and we got the bomb squad out by the end of July, I'd be going 8.5. But for me, and for you, because we have intelligent conversations every night at 8 o'clock, it's not just who you end up with at the end of the window and who you don't end up with and who you sell. It's when you sold them, it's when you bought them, and it's who you bought and sold. And that, you know, it's not just, you have to live the window to mark the window. You can't just look at it on, you can't go on holiday until August the 31st and go, here we go, I'm having a look at it. You have to look at it all. Do you think Onana will win the Golden Glove, says AI? 5 out of 10. I keep thinking about the 90 million Bruno sale, says Liam. I know, and I have to apologise. I completely forgot about that when I was giving it 5 out of 10. I mean, how did I forget that? I've already, if you've tuned in a little bit late, I gave a 5-minute detailed breakdown on why the window's a 5 out of 10 and completely forgot that we turned down 100 million for Bruno, which could have revolutionised the team. And just to go back to that, I think it's probably going to get brought up a lot. But if I take you back to the start of June, there was a show where it was really being debated about whether we should get rid of Bruno. And I remember saying, I love Bruno, he's a brilliant player, and I don't really want him to go. But if he's not playing as a number 10 and he's going to play in midfield, I don't rate him as a midfield. And that 90, 80, 100 million pounds becomes a sacrifice that would provide us with money to have a proper rebuild at our lowest point. So for me, I take the money. And loads of people went, when you put it like that, sell him. And I said, well, I am putting it like that because I love Bruno. And if he was number 10, I wouldn't be having this conversation. But as a midfielder, I don't rate him. and he has to be the sacrificial lamb to allow us to rebuild a club that's on its arse. And by refusing it, we're keeping the handbrake on. Lo and behold, against Fulham, he cost us 3 points. In the midfield. Going back to Ollie football with the signings we've done, says Dewan. Smithy, welcome to Members Club. Well, we don't know how bad the injuries are to Cunha and Mount yet, do we? I mean, I'm hoping we're going to find out this week. Any update by your source on the Delap or Osman deal, says Abraham. Well, I never had any information on the Osman deal. And if you're being facetious, or whatever the word is, this would be the same source that in the March international break told us that we were getting a goalkeeper because Amorim had enough of an Onana, and lo and behold, we've got a goalkeeper. This is the same source that said the morning after the Europa League final, Garnacho's 100% leaving, hours before Romano did it. The same source that on the Sunday said Yoro was starting the final. The same source that said everyone linking us to Semenyo is lying. And on Delap, I don't know what your problem is, mate. He was the #1 priority. Never said we were getting him. Just said that Man United think they're getting him, and he's the #1 sort. He's the #1 priority, and that was at the start of April, and no one had said it. 2 weeks later, the Athletic are reporting it. So you might not like the fact that we get information, but we are the biggest football community in the world. We have had people like Fabrizio Romano and Ben Jacobs and everybody else on regularly. Unfortunately, we do get information, mate. I know that might hurt you at this moment of feeling very depressed and down, but we do get stuff sometimes. If Agate, Menu and Casemiro played well, we wouldn't need a midfielder. If we got Baleba in 6 months, he would be on their level. Got to step up, says Rob. Trouble with that, Rob, is if Binder and Onana were decent goalkeepers, we wouldn't need a goalkeeper. Same argument. They're not stepping up, are they? Next 3, City at home, Chelsea away, Brentford. I only see 1 point from 9. Lemens does play in any of these 3 matches. I don't know, David. I don't know. I don't know that Lemens starts against Man City. I don't think he will. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know. I remember the last, well, it might not be the last time. I remember Evra making his debut against Man City and it didn't go very well. When Ten Hag didn't get De Jong, that project was over. Amorim needed Baleba. That's from the Boff man. It's 6.5 because Amorim needs runners and he got Burn. He's got someone to carry the ball, a very talented striker and a goalkeeper. Mark, who's Burn? Zephy, you give, sorry, it's a 6.5 because Amorim needs runners and he got Burn. He's got someone to carry the ball, a very talented striker and a goalkeeper. Okay, what about the midfielder, mate? There's 6.5. Bloody hell, it's going up. Simon says, now this excruciating window is finally closed, where will we finish and do you think we have any hope of winning the FA Cup? Oh, mate, Simon, what a question. Where do I think we're going to finish? Where do you think we're going to finish, everyone? Look, I did my Premier League predictions and I put United 5th. I put United 5th because I think if we'd got a good midfielder and a good goalkeeper, we could have finished 5th. Where we are now, I have to stick by that, and if we get 5th, I'm claiming it. But there ain't no way I believe that now. I don't believe that now. I've always said somewhere between 5th and 10th. If I have to be accurate, 7th. I think Spurs and Newcastle finish above us. 7th. Yeah, which is not great. But I think Newcastle are a really good team. And I've watched Newcastle play. And despite them only having 2 points from 9, now that they've got Voltemeda and Wissa, they've literally been playing with no striker. So I think Newcastle are a good team. I think Spurs with Thomas Frank, obviously they lost to Bournemouth at the weekend. They're still Spursy, but I still think they've got a good squad. So I put Newcastle and Spurs ahead of us. If we're lucky, 6th, but I think 7th. If we're unlucky, it could be 10th. So I'm going to go 7th. Yeah, good question. What about the FA Cup? The trouble with the FA Cup, mate, is I would have said we'd have a better chance of winning the Carabao Cup, but we're out. The problem with the FA Cup is it's more prestigious than the Carabao Cup. And I think there are so many teams, Chelsea, Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal, they can't all win the league and the Champions League. So I'd fancy one of them for the FA Cup. So no, I don't think we'll win the FA Cup. I think 7th and no cup. is about as good as it gets for United. Season ended when Amorim kept Bruno. You know what, Black Bear Gucci? I have to say, you know, sometimes in life and in football, there are moments that you can go back to and when that was the moment. And I sort of think if Amorim loses his job, a lot of people will go back to his keeping Bruno. Look, he's not been backed on a midfielder, but if he'd sold Bruno, he would have had money. It's not his fault, but I think if he'd made that choice, he'd have had a midfielder. All 3 ex-Man United managers were sacked, and another sacking for Amorim could be a sign when our team is not ready to compete this season, says JB. I bet they use Martinez in midfield if we're short, says Anthony. Got to get bloody fit first. We'll finish 4th. Clip it, says Keel. Well, I won't forget it. I don't need to clip it, Keel. I will definitely never forget that statement. David Rodriguez, welcome to the Members Club. Do you think Amorim's good enough to take us to top 5, says Simply Red? Not with the resources he has. If he had them, yes. Siddharth says, 3 out of 10 window. Why is no one worried about the wing-backs? I have zero faith in Delo and Shaw. Also, what is up with Bruno hate? We're dead without him. I don't think it's hate, mate. I love Bruno. I just don't like him in the midfield. I think a lot of people are like that. If only we got Sesko, Belieber and Martinez, what would you have made of that? Oh. So the window is Martinez, Belieber, Mbeumo, Cunha, Sesko. It's a bloody good window, mate. The only thing I could mark it down on is when they came in. But mid-July, I'm going to an 8. Be really happy with that. The fact Sesko is going to end up like Rasmus, we may as well not got a striker and invested in other players and kept Rasmus for another season, says John. We had a net spend of 60. Well done, Sir Jim, says Narnbread. We could bring Kone in, no idea, but better than nothing, says Mike. And Ben says, you were right earlier in the summer when you said Casemiro or Mainu have to leave for a midfielder to come in. Sadly, it came true. That's not me. That's another one from the source. You're absolutely spot on. I do remember that video. It wasn't me. That was from the source. They said, for a midfielder to come in, Casemiro or Mainu has to go. And they also said Collier will leave on loan or permanently. Well, Collier did go on loan. Casemiro and Mainu didn't leave, and we didn't get a midfielder. So, fair play. That's another one I forgot. United had a poor transfer window. I'm fearing Amorim will seriously be considering walk away. I know I would if I was him. Imagine if he did walk away. The problem is you don't get a payout. You don't get a payout. A midfield 2, including Bruno, is one person, says Robert McCormack. United have gambled on the striker, midfield and goalkeeper. Glazers are bad gamblers, not businessmen. Don't forget Swedish Rumble. I'm going to read that now, Brandon, yeah. Who originally sold the club to the Glazers, says Andy Hart. I don't actually know the full detail of that because obviously we had the Edwards family in charge, didn't we? But then they listed us on the, there were then shareholders like the racehorse people, John Magnier, wasn't it? So what the Glazers basically did is they started buying up those shares and became majority owners and bought everybody out. So JP McCoy, John Magnier, yeah. There was a number of shareholders and the Glazers bought them up. Lewis, welcome to the Members Club. Kent G says, Amorim in, but is there some backroom chess being played by Glasner because we won't buy a Liverpool player? Taking the piss. Window is a 6, indecisive and slow despite quality of players. We've not got a good midfield. We've not had a good midfield since Scholes and Carrick, says Alex. And JJ says, I love Mainu and I want him to play, but why is he so lethargic for someone so young? He plays like we're 10-0 up. Also, Mount is better than Bruno. I don't mind the signings, but we should have had them done earlier, and selling was abysmal, says Maxi. Selling Bruno would have made this window a 9 out of 10, says Jim. And Ian Tracy says a couple of decisions would have vastly changed this window. Sell Bruno for a midfielder and keeper, buy 110, play Ahmad there, and buy 2 wing-backs. Oh, I tell you what, Ian, that's hot. That's a hot topic, that is. Only buy 1 number 10, keep Ahmad as a 10, and buy a wing-back. Disaster of a window, says Azure. We have 1 striker again and haven't strengthened the weakest area in our squad. It's like they learned nothing from last season. It's not even last season, though. somebody just said, why are you so obsessed about a midfielder? I mean, I thought I'd explained it, but I'll tell you again. Because it's not even last season. Last season, we finished 15th with those 4 midfielders. And so many games were lost in the midfield. And we've got the same 4 midfielders. So if I finish 15th and I play a Europa League like a bloody dead shrew with a shit midfield, and I start the next season with the same midfield, I deserve to get slapped up. If I have a midfield that's that bad and I don't change it, I deserve what's about to come. But it's not even last season. The season before with Ten Hag, where we were fucking shit and finished 8th and our midfield got ran through like a bloody hot knife through butter, what was the midfield? Casemiro. Mainu. McTominay's left. Bruno. The midfield 3 a lot of the time was Casemiro, Mainu and Bruno. And it got ran through. So it's actually, people don't realise this, it's 2 seasons our midfield's been shit, and 3 of them are still here. Now, Bruno's a good player. Mainu's a good player. But we've not changed the midfield. I'd love to test Kobe and Cunha in the midfield. Oh my God. That's a terrible take, UFO. Need to get back on your spaceship. We finished 15th and no Europe. Still a decent window. Have I read that right? We finished 15th and no Europe. Still a decent window. So you're saying it's good that we finished 15th and we didn't get any Europe? Mate, that's like a... Okay, I'll just leave that. Joe, thank you very much for your members club. Join the members club. Joe von Lehman. Emily Derry's in the house. How about this? A little speculative, but for the potential cost of sacking and replacing a manager, we could have signed a promising young midfielder like Hackney or Agume. Better than nothing, says Emily Derry. Gay deal is off, says M. Lloyd Cooper, welcome to the members club. Was there any truth to the Gallagher rumours, says Marcus? There was a rumour that we approached Atletico Madrid to loan Conor Gallagher and they said they only wanted a permanent deal. But I would say that like everybody this summer is doing loan to buy. So why would you not say to Atletico Madrid, loan to buy? So I feel it's a bit half-hearted. Does it shade United? Does it put United in a good light or a bad light that they approached Gallagher and Atletico Madrid said only a permanent deal? I don't think it makes them look good either way. Supporting Man United is like watching Tom Cruise in Live, Die, Repeat, but it's lasted 12 years, not 1 day, says Mike. You forget Bruno's 350k a week coming off as well. Great point, Wheelbarrow. Great point. Arkaprabha says, 4 out of 10, but the window is shut. We have to show siege mentality and back Amorim and the team. The vultures are circling. Can't let the media sack another manager. I think this is a great point, actually. Really good point, because hopefully most of you are like me and you desperately want us to win every game and you desperately want Amorim to do well. And that's the hardest thing, isn't it? You know, I celebrated those goals against Burnley, especially the winner. I want him to survive. I want him to do well. But it's going to be hard because I look at that team and I think it's not good enough. I think it's going to lose games. And then we're going to be left here, you know, defending the manager against the onslaught again. You know, we're going into battle with water pistols, aren't we? And that's the problem. I absolutely agree with you. We've got to have a siege mentality and back the manager, but it's difficult to back something when you don't believe in it. I believe in the manager. I don't believe in that team. I don't think it's set up correct, and that's the hardest thing. I believe in the manager, but I think he's been given an impossible mission again, and we're drifting further and further away, says Malps, and he's right. Liverpool will get exposed without Gehi. Injuries, please, says Rebel Spoon. I'm going to do a video on That's Football afterwards because this is United Stand. The midfield situation is not ideal, but past transfer mistakes and no Europe hurt us. Signings are good. We got rid of a lot. I think they tried. You think a club that's £800 million in debt tried? You might want to do a little bit of history on why this club's screwed, and then don't ever come in here saying that they tried. The reason it's messed up is because of the people in charge. They can never get sympathy for trying. They've literally put us in this position. Even Sir Jim rescued the Glazers. So I don't think they're ever going to get much sympathy for trying. We'd be able to buy a lot more players if we weren't in debt. What should be our goals now, realistically, says Mandalorian? Well, we're Manchester United, mate. The goal has always got to be finish as high up as possible and get in the top 4. It's just whether you think we can. I thought Kone had a bad injury, says Jim. I think he does. I'm glad some of our problems are gone. It's disappointing about the level of signings. Saudi-level midfield, says Matthew. Why are we even sacking managers? When you deep it, the Glazers don't even know the offside rule and don't care about the club. Who in the club is actually saying we need to sack the manager, says VAR. Hader says, I still expect to watch a better brand of football. We chose not to sell Bruno and missed out on the most important position. Look, you know what? On a positive, as somebody who backs the managers, the manager, but has backed other managers, there's no doubt we're a better attacking team this year than we were last year. But there's no doubt we're not very good at the other end. So I think for Man United to do well this year, look, the way I had this conversation with somebody yesterday, they didn't watch the Burnley game and they were saying, I saw you won 3-2, what's your thoughts? And I said, Burnley 100% are going to get relegated. We needed to score 3 goals to beat them. Burnley. We needed 3 goals to beat Burnley. If we need 3 goals to beat Burnley, how many goals do we need to beat Crystal Palace? How many goals do we need to beat Everton? How many goals do we need to beat Villa? If we need 3 goals to beat Burnley, and what I mean is they scored 2, are we going to score 3 goals every game? And I think that's something we were talking about in June. If we don't get the midfield and the goalkeeper, we're going to have to outscore the opposition. And if we can score 3 or 4 goals every game, I think we'll be okay. We might even get top 5. But we are not set up to get 1-0 wins. We're not. Like, look at Fulham. That should have been a 1-0 win. We can't do it for 90 minutes because Bruno will let a runner go, or there'll be a mistake somewhere. So we're going to have to score a lot of goals this season. I know every game's different. At what point would you think I think every game's the same? But what I'm saying is I've watched a lot of football. I remember Ozzy Ardiles in charge of Spurs years ago, and they needed to score 4 goals a game if they were going to win because they were letting so many goals in. Without a good midfield, we are going to concede a lot of goals. So we're going to have to score a lot of goals. Could be very entertaining. But look, I watched us against Fulham, we concede. I watched us against Arsenal, we concede. I watched us against Burnley, we concede. And we concede because the midfield for the last 2 years is too open. If you haven't figured that out, sorry. It's the same midfield again. Back manager over long term like Klopp, says Curtis. Do we have any update on the Cunha injury? No, Krish. Do we have any players at the moment to play the Amorim system? Should we be looking at a new format? Okay, move on from that. We're playing a midfielder less than the opposition, says Robert McCormack. Arsenal just signed Hincapié from Leverkusen, says Zevi. I think Bruno deserves a little more credit for his commitment to our club. He agrees he's not consistent, but he gives his all. Scary to think where we'd be without him, but not getting Belieber is sad, says Yash. What's your goalkeeper in order now that we have 4 keepers? Well, apparently, you know how we always put 2 goalkeepers on the bench when you don't need to? Apparently, the plan is now to put 3 on the bench because we've got 4 keepers. So expect Man City to have Heaton and Arna and Binder on the bench. Amorim kisses the tip of a hot dog before eating it, since crypto. I just realised we have 4 goalkeepers. New meta, says John. We may regret selling Rasmus, still young with big potential. If he shines in Italy and Šeško struggles, could he return next season, says Grizzly. No, because I think Napoli have got the option to buy him. Richard says, I like the new signings, but in hindsight, probably should have spread the funds out to get a midfielder and a wing-back. Right, let me talk to you about this. I've been waiting to do this, so I want to just read it out. Where would it be? Okay. Fasten your seatbelts. I like Swedish Rumble. They talk about United in a really good way, but they also detail the financial side. And I read this and I thought, in many ways, it encapsulates something I've been talking about all summer. This summer, things changed forever. This summer, football changed. And I don't think many people predicted it, and I certainly don't think Glinios did. So really, what happened is people here it is. Oh, that's not it. Where's this? Has he deleted it? I thought I liked it. Where's that sweet? It was quite a long thing, and I'm on his bloody Twitter account and I can't find it. I must have dreamt it. No, I've got it now. Right. So, in about June, mid-June, I said this. Man United think that Project 28 will happen if they gradually build steadily over 3 years. It's very, very clear that that's the plan. Project 28 was about gradually building over 3 years. So maybe this year you get Europa League football, next year you get Champions League football, and then in year 3 you fight for the title. They based them predictions on every other club above us not going mad in the transfer window. They're better than us, but they don't go mad. And we gradually get better. Very, very obvious. What's happened is Liverpool won the league and Arsenal came second, and they've spent hundreds of millions of pounds. Man United's plan can't deal with that. Man United's 28 plan is to gradually catch up with everybody, and they don't really move forward. And our gradual, slow progress is up against teams that are better than us and building quicker than us. So if you imagine buildings, and Arsenal and Liverpool's buildings here and our buildings here, we expect them to grow a little bit, but we grow quicker and we catch them. What's actually happened is, there's Liverpool and Arsenal, there's us. They're growing like that and we're going like that. And the gap's getting bigger because the pace of our growth is not matching theirs. Because basically, the thing we need, ASAP, they have. Champions League budgets, £100 million a year of pure profit. We haven't got it, and they have. And it's killed us this summer. Imagine what it's going to do next summer. Their growth is just going to be big, 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 and ours is going to be small, small, small. So the gap gets bigger, basically. Right, this is what I wanted to read to you. Swedish Rumble talks really well about United on X and has a financial understanding. Liverpool's spending this summer is approximately 500 million euros. That is twice that of Man United's record spending during a window. So Liverpool's spend this summer is twice our record ever. He says, I've been criticised for being too critical of Ineos and the Glazers. This is what really genuinely scares me. I knew this type of spending was coming, and these clubs can keep spending next summer, every summer. And since they sign top talents, they'll be able to sell some of those guys for pure profit. If United has a poor 25-26, we'll be in a very tough situation next summer. Our debt is increasing every year. Our cash pool is drying up. The wage cost of Man United's squad is, factually, much less than half of City and Liverpool. When Ineos came in, Man United had been in a dire and desperate need of big investment in the squad. But the pundits like Neville and co had been fooled by rival pundits that United actually had invested a lot of money under the Glazers. City outspent Man United 5-1 the years before Sir Alex Ferguson went. And then when we were in desperate need to rebuild a whole squad, City, Chelsea and co had loaded squads. We still spent much less than they did from 2013 to today. So Ineos was told to just get in smart people and things were all right. So Ineos did just that. I think Ineos are good people and they did what everyone told them they should. But nobody had track of just how much the Glazers had underinvested in the squad, how much the new Champions League would improve rivals' income, and the multiples our rivals could get from buying talents and selling them for higher fees, and how hard it would be to get the smartest people in the business through the door. It's probably a faulty concept, but that's for another post. We have a chance to catch up today. That ship hasn't sailed yet. It could still not have left the port next summer. But take my word for it, 100% it's sailing soon. And at that point, it will be easy to catch. It will not be, sorry, and at that point, it will be easy. It will be as easy to catch up with Liverpool and City as it was for the manager of Forest or Villa to catch up Sir Alex in the noughties. But what does that mean? It's when paying a player 250k a week is a big investment for us, while Liverpool can go, here is 750k. Let us know what you decide. I called this 2 years ago, said that if we didn't invest in the squad back then and miss the Champions League, Liverpool and City will have wage bills twice as big as ours. Now we're there. With player sales, they can make up towards 1 to 1.1 billion in revenue. We're stuck at 600 million. It's going to become 3 times that in a hurry. Scary. I probably didn't get the words out there, but that is scary. Basically, Man City, Liverpool, Arsenal are on a trajectory to have much higher revenue than us and much bigger wage bills than us, justified by prize money. So it will get to a point very soon, as I said, where United will tell you they're going for Baleba next summer, and they'll think they're going for Baleba next summer, but we won't get Champions League football. Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea will offer the 100 million to Brighton and will offer Baleba the 200 grand. But Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal or Man City will go, there's the 100 million and we'll give you 300 grand. And this is coming. Like, we're becoming weaker the more we don't invest in that squad. We have to have Champions League football 2 years ago. We haven't got it, and we've just underinvested in the squad at a pivotal time. And that's the financial argument. We're in big shit if we don't have a good season. And that's why I worry that we're in trouble, you know? It is depressing because it's got nothing to do with the midfielder. It's got nothing to do with Ineos. It's got nothing to do with the Glazers. It's to do with football. That Champions League is a cash cow Man United have missed out on. It's the Super League in every other name. And it's super money. And if you're in it every year, as I said a few weeks ago, in 2 years' time, if we're not in the Champions League, Liverpool and Arsenal will have made nearly $500 million more than us. $500 million! In 2 years' time, they'll have made, just from the Champions League, more than us, because we haven't made it. Every year, it's over 100 million quid. And if you can project it, and this is why Arsenal and Liverpool have spent like they have, because if you can basically guarantee you're in that Super League every year, you can project your signings on that. You can start to take calculated risks and go, well, let's spend big again because we expect to be in this every year. Look at our rivals. There's no way Villa are getting in the top 4. There's no way Spurs are getting in the top 4. There's no way United are coming back. There's no way. We're always going to be here. You can't compete with that in life or in football. You can't compete with the person that's better than you and has more resources than you. You can't do it. I don't think people are seeing that. I think people are going, oh, you didn't get a midfielder. It's not that bad. You know, Amorim will work his magic. You know, it's all right. We've made 40 million per year profit on Garnacho. You know, we're all right. Nah, football changed this summer. It changed so much that United's Project 28 is dead. It doesn't work in the new world. Project 28 was a gradual build to fighting for the title. It didn't take into account Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City and Chelsea were going to put their foot down and go, we've got £100 million of profit here. Let's pump, let's pump, let's pump, let's pump. Let's make sure nobody gets near us. Let's make sure we generate that Super League where there is no relegation. The Super League is here. There is no relegation anymore. It will be the same 4 teams every year and they will get super rich. Remember the original Super League that the Glazers wanted to take us in, where there was no relegation? We're basically going to head there. Because how does Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City or Chelsea drop out of the top 4 in the Premier League when they've got these squads that they're going to keep buying and selling every year? It will be really difficult. Really, really difficult. United are capable of doing it. United can get in there, but you've got to be in there. Get in there, fight your way in, and then stay there. That's what you've got to do. But we haven't got the squad to do it. That's the problem. We haven't. Irfan says, while the Glazers are in charge as fans, we will live in this Groundhog Day of disappointment indefinitely, says Irfan. I feel like Amorim is heading... the league is so competitive, it's not just the main rivals, it's the top 10 teams. We still operate as if they don't exist, says Greg. I think potentially Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea and Man City go off to another level. And you're right, we get dragged down by the Crystal Palaces, the Bournemouths, the Brightons, who can give us a game. You know, Bournemouth can beat us. Crystal Palace can beat us. Everton can beat us. There's a lot of teams that can beat us. While the Glazers are in charge, done that one. I feel like Amorim is heading more towards the sack because managers like Arteta and Klopp were in a time where the league was much less competitive, says Abs. Ten Hag just got sacked by Leverkusen after only 2 league games. Is this the clearest sign yet that United moved on at the right time? No. I mean, I don't want to talk about Ten Hag because he's in the past, but like no club sacks a manager after 2 games unless there's been a huge fallout and conflicts of attitudes. You don't sack a manager after 2 games. That's ridiculous. There has to be a big fallout beyond the football. Ryan says, it's a disgrace that we left that midfield that finished 15th the same. I have no words for this club. Big up the community from Abu Dhabi. Thank you, Ryan. I'm gutted we didn't get a brilliant midfielder. I'm glad we didn't panic by one at the end, says Lee Galdart. I feel we will get Gaihi. It's a blessing in disguise. I think we can get Gaihi and shouldn't extend Maguire's contract. I don't know where that's coming from, VJ, but there we go. We were paying 50 million for Baleba before Garnacho sale. We got 40 million for him. Where did this 90 million go? Says Anish. I know. Do the owners think United is a brand more than a football squad? They just don't care anymore, says Rex. Looker says, breaking, I've lost my job, says Ibrahim. We have to just pray we outscored the opposition, says Shan. Hope you're well, says Owen. The problem with the transfer window was no midfielder. I'm a little optimistic about our goalkeeper, but hopefully it'll be okay, says Owen. Off topic, but 3 of our managers have been sacked in a week. I hope we can back Amorim for 3 seasons minimum, says Namin. Why was the keeper situation not the biggest priority? We ended up with a knock-off Henderson, says Goldio. Well, I read something today, and it's a lie, but I read something today that Man United weren't going for a goalkeeper until they saw the blunders of Onana and Henderson. And I thought, you know what? This is why the media, you have to just be very, very careful. I know for a fact Amorim made his mind up in February. And it was the March international break where it was told that they wanted a goalkeeper. There is no way that Ruben Amorim and Jason Wilcox are that thick to go, I think we're all right with Onana. Yeah, probably not getting a midfielder, but we're all right with Onana. There's no way they waited till Grimsby to go for Lemens. We've been in talk with Lemens. They don't know. These journalists don't know their arse from their elbow. We've been in talk with Lemens for about 2 months. Didn't wait till bloody Bienda to drop it or Grimsby to go and get a goalkeeper. Al Hilal's midfield is Milinkovic-Savic and Ruben Neves. Their midfield pivot is actually better than ours. That's very worrying, says the Beast. Remember, the Saudi window and the Turkey window is still open, so we could still move Bienda or Onana. That could still happen. Yeah. Right, let me just double check something here because the window's closed. We can't sign anybody. There won't be any happy ending. But yeah, I think, look, there's been a lot we've spoken about there. But I think the most relevant thing is the fact that these clubs like Liverpool, Arsenal and co are richer than us, have more revenue than us and have more earnings than us. And it's going to make it harder and harder. And if you think this window was bad, next window could be worse, which is, you know, an amazing prospect, really. Spurs signed Mawani on a loan. Did Spurs get Xavi Simons? I think it's been such a hectic day. I've missed some things. But I know Donnarumma went to there. Oh my God, I've just read one of the rimmers of Ineos saying money's expected to be available for January. Fucking hell. I wonder how much they get paid. I really seriously do wonder how much they get paid. Like, unbelievable. Unbelievable. Apparently, Oliver Glasner went as far as to say if Palace sold Gehi, he'd offer his resignation at Palace. You know, the problem with that is, though, is that it's very clear that Gehi wanted to go to Liverpool. So you end up with a player that's not happy. But look, that's not my problem. Hey, I tell you what, though, here's a good tweet. The moral of the transfer window is this. Act like a complete cock and you'll get your dream move. If you act like a professional, you won't. And I suppose you could say Isak, Wizza got what they wanted. Gehi, Belabor didn't. You know, so the players that played by the rules didn't necessarily get their move. The players that, you know, went on strike did. Funny. Very funny. Now I'm looking for something here and I can't bloody see it. I can't see it. Look, I know what I was going to say anyway before I move on. In relation to the transfer window, you know what's slightly disappointing, or probably very disappointing, is that when you look at the race for fifth, Villa look like they're gone. Newcastle had a slow start. Spurs lost at the weekend. I think fifth place can only be Spurs, Newcastle, Villa or us. I don't think Brighton can do it. I don't think Bournemouth or Forest are going to do it. So I genuinely do think when you look at fifth place, Villa look like they're out of it, which means it's us, Spurs and Newcastle, which is why I'm putting us in at seventh. But the sad thing for me is that if we'd had the window we could have had, I think we could have finished fifth. Now, look, dreams can come true. Maybe a miracle can happen. But I do think we had a great chance for fifth. And for whatever reason, the hierarchy who own the club said we're not going to spend that money. What I'm saying is, if we'd got a midfielder, I think we had a great chance of fifth. Without it, I think it's going to be hard. You can lose 12 games and finish fifth, though. So it's not over. You can lose 12 games and finish fifth. And we are going to lose a lot of games. Let's be honest. We will lose games. But, it might happen. And what I do want to say is, if Ruben Amorim gets us fifth place, he deserves a bloody medal. Window is closed, says Bounty Hunter. What we can do but move forward. Hope for the best. But we have a new keeper, decent forwards. It has to work. Look, I don't think we can do it. I think it's going to be a horrible season. But I'll be there at the front, fighting for Amorim and this team. I'm just being honest. I'm not Amorim out. They may well have kicked him very close to the door with not backing him. But as I said at the start, I don't blame Barada, I don't blame Wilcox, I don't blame Favell, and I don't blame Amorim. I blame the owners. The owners are the problem at this football club. And anybody who tries to protect them is mad, as far as I'm concerned. And that's what I think. And I will back Amorim, and I hope that he can do the job. But you know what's incredible is that next summer, Casemiro's gone, Bruno's gone, and our midfield will be Mainu and Agate. Like, there's a major renovation in the midfield next summer that's already going to be the biggest part of next summer in a World Cup year. What people don't remember is, and this is another thing, this window is the best window in years because there's not been a major tournament. So you can have your long chats with agents, you can look around the market. Next summer is going to be the biggest World Cup ever. And because it's so big, there aren't even going to be many players that aren't at it. So trying to do business next summer, forget about getting your business done early. Like, this will be a late window next summer. And we've got a lot to do. I think next summer, we're going to need at least 2 midfielders. We're probably going to need a couple of wing backs. We might need a centre back. We might even need a goalkeeper if it goes wrong. So we're going to need 5 signings next summer. Maybe even a striker. I don't know. But yeah, we'll need a lot of money. We'll need a lot of money next summer. Le Mans is not official yet. It'll get done. It'll get done. Steve C, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. Clinton says, I'm very hurt and disappointed we didn't get Emi Martinez. Would have been a strong presence as a goalkeeper. Where do you think we'll finish next season? I'm saying 7th behind Newcastle and Spurs. I think Newcastle will motor now. Eddie Howe's a good manager. They've got a good squad. I think Newcastle will start to motor now. Window is closed. What can we do but move forward? Says Bounty Hunter. Exactly. Someone needs to explain to the Glazers that having a great midfield is like having an amazing offensive line in the NFL. You just can't be a champion without one. You know what, Nectario? If I was to speak to the Glazers about why a midfielder is so important, I would say, remember Tom Brady winning you the Super Bowl at Tampa Bay? You wouldn't have won it without him, would you? Your midfield is basically your quarterback. They run the show. Maybe they'd understand then. I actually had, just before we start to wind down, there is something here. You know, I mentioned earlier about how somebody listed off our midfield recruitment over the last few years and compared it to Liverpool. I couldn't find it, but I have found this. Midfield signings post Sir Alex Ferguson. Fellaini, 13-14. Herrera, 14-15. Schneidlin and Schweinsteiger, 15-16. Pogba, 16-17. Matic, 17-18. Fred, 18-19. 19-20, nobody. Van der Beek, 20-21. 21-22, nobody. 22-23, Eriksen, Casemiro. 23-24, Amrabat. 24-25, Agate. 25-26, nobody. It's not very good, is it? It's not very good. Okay, we are back at 10 o'clock tomorrow. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out tomorrow. I really do. I don't think Amorim's going to resign. That would be news. But I do think there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out tomorrow. A lot of leaks coming out tomorrow. I definitely think we'll start to get the positivity leaks about how we're going to spend a load of money next summer. If you fall for that, that's up to you. It's like having a leaky boat and trying to get water out of it before it sinks. We may win some games and keep it floating, but eventually it'll go down like the Titanic, says Greg K. Thank you very much. Okay, fantastic show tonight. Really enjoyed it. Thank you to all of you this summer. It is an international break that I do look forward to, because it's so intense for so long. And, you know, it's a time to reflect. I think we're in for a very challenging season, and it's not one that I'm very optimistic about. I'd describe it like that. I back the manager. I want him to do well. I hope he can pull off a miracle. If he gets us in the top 5, he deserves Manager of the Year, in my opinion. I know he won't get it because he'll say Man United finishing 5th. But the context of what Man United are now, I think if he got top 5, he'd deserve Manager of the Year. I think it's a ridiculously hard job, and I'm not optimistic. I hope he can do it. I really, really do. Thank you for all your opinions tonight. Regardless of what they are, you're entitled to them. Please do smash a like and subscribe. We are back at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Obviously, there's no chance we're going to be doing a late night live because there will be no window open anymore. The season starts now. We go with what we've got. Is it enough? Take care. Speak to you all in a bit.